So I wanted to make a video today about the general state of health in the world as I see it. My last videos I went into my own story of chronic illness and how I overcame it through fasting, and I'll go a little bit further and deeper into that in this video as well. But then I'm going to talk about just what is going on with health. Like how come the whole world seems to be dealing with one form of chronic illness or another? Everybody's obese, everybody has diabetics, everybody is diabetic, everybody's depressed, people have eczema and psoriasis and everything under the sun, and not to mention cancer and all of that. And the especially deadly autoimmune diseases like lupus and MS and all these things. Is this really just the way human life is and how it's supposed to be and how it's always been? Or is this relatively recent? And is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Are doctors and pharmaceutical companies there to save us? Has the allopathic model succeeded in making us healthier and longer living than ever before? I would argue no to all of the above. Just to recap a little bit on my own story, I went through a 5-year period of intense illness, especially skin disease. I had what is commonly known as topical steroid withdrawal. It's also known as red skin syndrome, and this is a condition that arises from prolonged and possibly misused topical corticosteroids, which are a medication that are used for all kinds of skin conditions. They mimic the hormone cortisol that is produced in the human body naturally by the adrenal glands. And one of the main effects of these medications is that it constricts the vascular system. So it constricts your veins. Less blood goes flowing into your tissues, basically. And that's what makes them so effective in removing any kind of edema or inflammation, I should say. And I do believe that they may be useful in acute cases, for instance, after an accident where everything is just totally inflamed and there's no blood flow and you can't breathe or whatever it is. These medicines can be useful, but the way that they're used is absolutely incredibly harmful. Like in my own case, obviously I can mostly just speak from experience. In my own case, I was prescribed these medications at a very young age, probably 9 or 10 or something like that, and used them all through adulthood until I realized, damn, I have effectively ruined my natural capacity for producing these hormones. And that kind of connects into my theory of how the human body works, which is more or less as a system of interconnected feedback loops. So what happened, for instance, in this case, is my body in its natural state produces cortisol as a reaction to external stimuli. If all of a sudden, as happened in my case, the body starts to receive mimic cortisol from outside, in this case from the corticosteroids, then it lowers its own output. And the more you use these chemicals, and for the longer time you use these chemicals, the more the body will draw back its own production. So when I quit using them after many, many years, I believe my body was more or less, or at least the production of cortisol in my body was completely out of whack. It had broken this feedback loop with some kind of external stimuli. And as soon as one feedback loop is out of whack, all of the others go out of whack as well. That's why I got, way worse skin conditions. My eyes started getting weird. I got allergies for everything, incredibly bad digestion. And there are more factors to this, obviously. The horrific dietary practices of our times being a large part of that, but also things like antibiotic use. Like, people are prescribed antibiotics for anything and everything constantly. And I was definitely there. I was prescribed antibiotics for any old cold, any little infection that I would get, however harmless. And, when most of the time they would have just resolved themselves naturally. But there's such an incentive to sell these things, these chemicals, these drugs. That kind of brings me into my view of this so-called medical industrial complex. And the way I see it, there are massive companies that produce massive quantities of drugs. And their incentive is not to make you healthy. It is, in fact, to suppress your symptoms to the degree that you believe that whatever drug you're taking or treatment you're undergoing is helping you health-wise, when in fact it's just like putting a band-aid on top of it. In fact, the major incentive is to actually keep you in a state of general disrepair. If you think about it, if you're a gigantic pharmaceutical company, your main goal is to continue selling drugs. On the other hand, if they make a drug that actually kills you, they can't sell any more drugs. If they make a drug that cures you, they won't sell any more drugs. A cured person won't give a pharmaceutical company their money. So the cash cow is to be found in between. When you go to the doctor, he doesn't tell you about fasting. He won't tell you about a simple, austere diet. He may tell you something like, you have to go exercise, which is fine. You have to exercise, but it's, dietary practices are number one. You need to figure out your diet. You need to give your body the nutrition it needs, and you need to give your body the chance, the time that it needs to heal any broken tissues, and that's what fasting does. So what I did when I was healing myself from this very, very long, drawn-out chronic illness that I dealt with is, number one, I started fasting a lot. I did a 10-day long water fast at first, which effectively cured me, about 50 or 60%. Like, I got so much better, and it was so motivating to see the results that I just kept going. I think I ate for like 5 days, regained, 7 kilograms or something in a ridiculously short time, which, as I realized later, was probably not the healthiest way to go about it. And I think perhaps I was dealing with some kind of mild form of refeeding syndrome, which is something that you should definitely avoid if at all possible. But it's something that comes up if you break your fast too fast or suddenly. You eat too large. Your meals are too large after a long period of fasting. Anyway, you live and you learn. It can be dangerous, but just do your research and you'll be fine. I ate for 5 or 6 or 7 days, I can't remember, and then I went straight back into a 4 or 5 day fast. Within about a month or 2 months, I would say I was about 98% better. Like, all of the illness that had nota bene almost drawn me to suicide were now gone. And I finally had hope again for my life. Started exercising, started thinking about my future, like what do I want to do with my life? And the relief, I just cannot explain. I can't put it into words. It was just the most amazing thing ever. So that was the first step, just fasting a lot. The second step was sort of a blend between an incredibly simple and austere diet and an elimination diet. So I went through all of the things that... well, actually, let me start again. I chose a few foods that I believed were healthy and okay. Those started out being fruit. So I broke my 10-day fast with watermelon and grapes, if I remember correctly. Just those two foodstuffs, the first few meals. And then later on I went into, I had chicken and butter and some yogurt and stuff like that. I had the intention of eating only fruits, just a fruitarian diet after coming out of the fast, but I realized as soon as I came out of the fast, and this is something that's really helpful and interesting, is as soon as I came out of the fast, I was feeling so much better. My skin was calm, my body was calm. I had, amazingly, I had quite a lot of energy, even though I hadn't eaten for 10 days. And my body was just so sensitive, my digestion was so sensitive that as soon as I started eating the watermelon and the grapes, I started getting these little bumps on my skin. And I started getting this sort of bloated feeling in my stomach. And I was like, oh man, maybe I can't ever eat anything ever. It was actually the first thing that I thought. But later on I realized, what if the food that I think is most healthy for me doesn't actually work for me? I started thinking a little bit more about my heritage. Like, what were my ancestors eating? What foods have my ancestors been eating for the last 1,000 years, 2,000 years? What kind of foodstuffs? Was it fruit, tropical fruit? I don't think so. I'm of Nordic origin. My ancestors would have been living in the forests of Sweden or the hills of... No, there are no hills in Denmark, but you know what I mean. Would have been farmers, fishermen, hunters before that. There would have been a lot of meat, a lot of fish, a lot of sort of temperate vegetables like roots, tubers, some fruit, obviously, a lot of berries especially, but a fruit-based diet would not have been something that they would recognize. This wasn't an island in the Philippines or Sumatra or whatever. So I decided to just give that a try, and for your information, I had been vegan for a long time before that, on and off. I had been probably 2 years in total, but mostly I was eating a lot of fruit-based and plant-based diets, taking all kinds of turmeric and these green powders and stuff like this, because I was told and I truly believed that they were the healthiest thing that I could eat. I started eating very, very simple animal-based diets. Started eating a lot of chicken, a lot of beef, a lot of cheese. Bear in mind I was in Sicily at that time, so I had a really, really good selection of cheeses and cured meats and all kinds of things. A lot of yogurt, Greek yogurt, that really worked well for me. And mostly I would just eat like 2 or 3 foodstuffs, kind of rotating. Like I would eat only chicken and butter and yogurt, or I'd have only cheeses and beef and curd or whatever. And my body felt way better. And I was doing fast in between, so I would maybe eat a few days and then fast a few days. This is while I was getting over the worst of my illness. And then I kind of settled more into a more balanced dietary practice of eating maybe once a day. Every few days I would eat 2 meals a day. I'm not really that anal about it at all. I'm just kind of I eat kind of intuitively these days. I do realize that I feel so much better when I fast a lot, so that's what I do mostly. But if I do feel like I want to eat more, that's what I do. And coming out of that summer of 2019, I had effectively healed myself of something that I had been told multiple times by multiple doctors that was incurable, that I was just unlucky, that I needed to take the medicines that they were selling me and take them religiously. And when they stopped working, as they often did, then they would just give me stronger medications with more side effects and more detrimental long-term effects on my body. So, coming out of that experience, I had lost all trust entirely in the medical system, the healthcare system. You know, these people may want to help you. I'm not going to dispute that there are many good people in the healthcare system, and probably in the pharmaceutical industry as well. These are people who oftentimes truly want to help their fellow man, and I do believe that. But the system that they work within, the ideology that they work around, is just toxic. And it ruins any good intentions that they may have. That's what I truly believe. And it's ridiculous to me now to go to the doctor if I feel bad. I'm just like, no. A doctor will make me feel worse. A hospital will kill me. You know, this blind trust that we have in medical authority needs to go if we want to find true health. It's also a question of responsibility. There's this weird ideology that we, in the Western world at least, have grown up with and been instilled with, and that is this blind trust in medical authority. That's just what I was talking about before. You know, you have a stomachache, you have a whatever it is, you know, you have a headache, or you have a cyst on your back or whatever, and the answer is always go ask your doctor. And anytime you read a book about health, for instance, it's like, yeah, I believe all this information that I'm writing about, but consult your doctor first, as if your doctor won't tell you, like, no, this is rubbish, take my medicine. Or if you're lucky, you'll get a doctor that's open-minded. I have nothing against doctors per se. You know, my grandfather was a doctor, and he was a okay guy, I guess. But I do believe that he wanted to help his patients, and I do believe that's the case for most doctors. And if a doctor is open-minded, so much the better, you know. It's not like a medical education is a waste of time, absolutely not, but the accentuation of the allopathic model of medicine, you know, these people are in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. This we have to realize. Even if they have some ideas of their own about what health means, you know, good sleep, good exercise, a good social network, good diet, especially, whatever feelings they may have toward that, they will always be pushing their drugs simply because pharmaceutical companies pay for their education. You know, if you go further, if you follow the money, they pay for their continued education. They take them out for, you know, what are these golf trips where you go and meet a pharmaceutical executive who gives you a nice dinner and then tells you about this great new drug that they're selling. You know, all this stuff combined just makes it so that these people cannot help you. And I think I'll just end this video on a quote that has stuck with me for a long time. And it's from a guy called Terence McKenna. If you don't know him, I'd recommend you check him out. May not be for everybody. He's kind of a psychedelic lunatic, but I like him. And he said, remember that ideology and culture are not your friend. And truer words have not been spoken. You can pick and choose. Like, society is not all bad. It has tyrannical aspects and fatherly aspects, from in the archetypal sense, but it's not your friend. It just is. Culture, the state, and the ideology around the medical industrial complex just isn't there to help you. It isn't there to save you. It isn't there to cure you. Just keep that in mind. Take responsibility for your own life and thrive in good health. Peace.